Welcome to Food for Thought. Welcome to Food for Thought with Trey. I'm Trey. Happy Tuesday. Happy holidays. Happy birthday to whoever's birthday it is. I think I actually have a couple of friends whose birthdays, I guess, between yesterday and today. Happy everything. Happy to put our feet on the ground. Happy to wake up this morning. Not put our feet on the ground. Happy to put our feet on the floor this morning. Happy to wake up. Happy for all the blessings and things that we have. Happy for all the things we are to be gracious for that we have. Happy. So I did a little not reflection, but I did a little trip down memory lane last night. I rewatched the live that Candace had featuring Alex Jones. I'm sure you've heard that. And I'm sorry, also, happy squeaky chair. But back to that. The podcast or live between Candace and Alex Jones about a year or so ago. Wow, it was a bit surreal. I'm still kind of in, not disbelief, but I'm still kind of letting it sink in that, the things that are going on with Alex Jones, and I don't really even know what's going on, but whatever's going on with him. But anyways, it was ironic that on Candace's live with him a couple years ago, she on her show showed some clips of Alex from like 20 plus years before that, and some things that he spoke about, interestingly enough, are things that we speak about in 2025 going into 2026. He was spot on. So it's just very ironic that now it seems that there's some things going on where it's we spoke about in the previous video about logical data points and patterns. Well, the logical data points and patterns from him were pretty much, transparency and making it make sense. And now, ironically enough, it doesn't make sense. Pun intended, you know? I spoke about, in the last video, I gave the analogy of, the basics of a football game in terms of screenplays and X's and O's and quarterback, the owners of the team, and all that kind of stuff. And it's funny because when I thought about Mr. Jones, I was like, wow, he was kind of like the coach. He was kind of like the Bill Belichick of the world of making it make sense. And interestingly enough, Bill Belichick's not the coach of that football team anymore either. So it's just, ironic. I had kind of also, in addition to checking out the old podcast that Candace had with Mr. Jones, I saw a couple of posts, and I actually checked out, I just kind of, did a little cruise around social media world, and one of the stops was at X. And it's ironic also that, or interesting or curious anyway, that Mr. Jones still has on his X banner, still has a picture of him and Tucker Carlson. I was like, that's interesting. Listen, this is food for thought. So my brain kind of went, a slightly different place for a second too. I'm like, well, that's interesting that whatever's going on behind the scenes, he still has a picture. Again, hey, obviously they were close or are close. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? It's again curious that whatever's going on with them, that there's still a picture of him and Tucker Carlson on his X banner. Interesting. Just curious. Um, what are your thoughts on? Because remember a couple of years ago as well, there was there was uh, a court case uh, involving, or still is, I guess, a court case involving Mr. Jones. And, let's assume that whatever's going on behind the scenes is at least monetary related. What's your thoughts on that? Because it was pretty interesting that the powers that be, I'm trying to keep it brief, but the powers that be sued him. The person's, was related to the Sandy Hook stuff, and he was sued, and I believe that the Supreme Court, I think it was, at least from what commercial media was saying, that the Supreme Court rejected his appeals and et cetera, and I think liquidated some things, some property and stuff like that. From what reports had said, what are your thoughts on that? Is he, do you think he's like? Did you think he took the bag? And do you think he took the bag from the brand? Do you think that the courts are pressuring him into doing what he's recently done in relationship to Candace? Or do you think it's both? Do you think the brand is kind of like pressing through the courts to do this? So almost like a screenplay. Remember we talked about a screenplay where a screenplay in football, I'm sorry, where the offense has a play that basically um, makes the opponents think they're doing one thing when they're actually doing something else. What are your thoughts on that? Anyways, moving along. I don't want to make this a long video. You're probably like, Trey, you always said it's always a long video. Oh, quick side note. Cheers. I'm a little congested right now. The weather down south. I haven't been down south that long. I've been down south off and on through the years, but I'm actually living down south now. And I'm still getting used to to having four seasons in one day. So my sinuses are kind of jacked up. And anyways, it's funny. I got some tea here, and I'm waiting for it to kind of cool off. I don't want to burn my tongue on camera, especially. But um, I do the usual tea, honey, and a lemon, and sometimes I put creamer in my uh, tea. Same creamer that I use to put in my coffee. Do you guys do the same thing? Do you guys put creamer in your coffee? Do you guys put creamer in your tea? And if not, what do you put in your tea? Do you have any, you know, suggestions for me to put some things in my tea that might help to uh, release some of the congestion I have? Just a side note, but I apologize. I was doing all the happy, and happy cheers. Um, fun, um, fun side note. I have one of those. So I'm pretty much a tea, coffee, water, wine kind of guy, and some tequila here and there. But um, and I have certain little, I guess, routines. So I have a water pitcher, French press, different things that I get my fluids from. I have an Nalgene um, right there, and so anyways, um, I have one of those the Pure brand, Pur, Pure, is it Pure, purr like a cat, or Pure Plus 12 cup pitchers. And I actually just replaced one, so the one I'm speaking of now is a new one, and actually it's right here. And so I just literally last night while I was filling it back up realized there's a trap door, and you guys might say, "Oh, well, we know about that door, Trey. You're late." But I just thought I liked the picture. I've had, I actually, like I said, I just replaced one that I've had for several years, and I just thought that it was, a nice design. The two tone lid, hey, it looked kind of cool. But I realized that darker blue section is actually a trap door. That when you press the button, the door flips up, and instead of taking the whole lid off, which is how I broke the previous one that I replaced using this one, you just pour the water in, almost like on a blender. Instead of taking the whole lid off, you twist a little plastic piece off, and you kind of keep putting stuff in. Who would have thought? But that was an aha moment for me, and I'm like, wow, I have a new favorite water pitcher. That's the same water pitcher that I just got. But that was a pretty interesting thing. It's funny because I used to be a tech guy, and I kind of still am here and there, but I used to be a tech guy, and it's like, wow, as far as all the stuff that I've seen and kind of played around with, I'm like, it's like, wow, Trey, you're happy about a water pitcher. Hey, it's those simple things in life, right? So simple things in life are free. I have a free trap door on my pure 12 cup uh, water pitcher filter. So speaking about filters, um, pun intended, reverse filter, right? So, again, as I've been kind of cruising around in these social media streets, I've been kind of like, do you know what the rocks got cooking, so to speak? Like I've been smelling one point we're probably used to smelling a stench in the air, right? But I'm starting to smell a new aroma, maybe potpourri or something. I don't know, but it's a new aroma. And it's aroma, the aroma is like, I'm seeing like these new faces. I'm liking the faces of the persons I'm seeing around in these YouTube streets, especially. I'm seeing faces of various, races, obviously men, women, different social, economic backgrounds, different viewpoints, different experiences in life, all walks of life, young, old, middle of the age road, so to speak. I'm really liking it. Um, and what's what I one of the things I like about it is that a lot of the new faces I'm seeing again, unfortunately, that I've seen or noticed more pop up. I'm actually one of them pop up after the unfortunate demise of or unfortunate circumstances related to Charlie Kirk. These new faces are not bound by the centralized, as we call it, centralized um, systems of control, but connected more so based on wholesomeness, truth, transparency, um, disagreement, respect. And I wanted to put that disagreement in there, just different views, because the new faces, the new channels, the new aroma that I'm seeing and smelling is of, persons who are okay with disagreeing, okay with speaking their truth, uh, especially to persons who may or may not agree, and speaking their truths to people who don't agree, but having a wholesome, respectful, informative dialogue. I'm one of those people who am uncomfortable being in a room, and I'm not. But if I were, I'll just say hypothetically, I'm uncomfortable being in a room if I were in a room full of people who have all the same exact um, viewpoints and beliefs that I had. That would make me uncomfortable, because I'm going to tell you, if I entered a room like that, and the split second that I noticed that, I'm exiting, because something's going on. So I'm saying all that to say that I really am liking what I'm seeing in these YouTube streets in terms of the variety of people that are telling their truths and uncovering some truths um, through digging deep research and discussion similar to this one. Let me know your thoughts. What have you seen in these YouTube streets? Um, to me, it's kind of like I say, it's like almost like well, it's not that way yet, but maybe in the near future, it could be almost like if some of us that are tuning into me right now are probably too young to remember, but for the ones that are my age and older, remembers an older classic TV show called Cheers, where everyone knows your name. And it's sort of, to me, maybe it'll get to that at some point where it's like, hey, come on in, friend, have a seat. Would you like some water or some tea or some coffee? Cheers. Let's have a wholesome debate. Uh, a respectful argument. No shouting, no disrespect, no calling out names, no kicking up dust, no throwing of rocks. Just a wholesome disagreement, and let's possibly consider um, finding some common ground and building on that, and respecting the differences. There was an old term or an old saying when I was growing up. It was like, and I'm going to paraphrase because I don't want to, say whatever, but hey, don't whiz on my lawn. And I feel that, I see that in a certain way in terms of, hey, don't whiz on my lawn. I'm not going to whiz on your lawn. But in the context of what I'm speaking of, in terms of, hey, sometimes we don't agree on everything, and we shouldn't agree on everything. But it's kind of like, hey, at some point in time, we might, in this space, we might bump heads. And I feel as though that's okay, as long as it's respectful. So we might be, instead of, hey, don't whiz on my lawn, it's like, hey, well, well, how could we solve that problem? Because at some point I have to cross your lawn. At some point you have to cross my lawn, and we might have to take a whiz at that point, right? So, hey, maybe you could take a whiz on my lawn Mondays and Wednesdays, and I'll take a whiz on your lawn Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the rest of the days, we won't cross the lawn. Something sort of like that. I know it's like, I know you're probably thinking like, hey, Trey, that's a wild ass metaphor. But again, that's just how I see it. Anyways, let's see, what else do I have? Oh yeah. So as far as the aroma, the energy, the energy that I'm feeling in the new energy, the good feeling energy that I'm feeling in these YouTube streets, kind of remind, and along with what's going on in terms of what Mr. Jones has recently done involving Candace. It reminds me of the law of conservation, where it's like, pure energy cannot be, destroyed. It can only be, let me check on my notes because it's been a while, but oh yeah, energy is not created or lost. It just changes form. Almost like heat. Like you're heating up a steak. It's raw, and you apply some heat to it, and it's different, but it's still a steak. It just kind of changed form. I know that's probably a crazy analogy. Let's just crack an egg, and you got the yolk and the egg whites in there, and then on the other end you got a great looking omelet. It's still an egg with the yolk. It just changed form. So again, I'm liking I'm liking it, and the change that I'm seeing reminds me of that. The form is changing from the old school control from the gatekeepers, moving into the new school, so to speak, of the gate kickers, the gate kicker inners, which are us. What do you think? What are your thoughts about that in terms of the change of the energy? Again, it's gonna, nothing meaningful is going to be easy, and nothing meaningful is going to be overnight. But have you all been noticing change in patterns? Again, with Mr. Jones doing whatever he's doing, that's a change in energy in some sort of way. There's a form that's changing. Their energy is changing forms. What are your thoughts on that? I'm curious to know. Um, anyways, um, lastly, I remember I meant to mention in the previous video about someone else's comment, and I believe it might have been on someone else's channel. I believe someone commented on someone else's channel, if I remember correctly. If someone real remembers what I'm about to say, um, please correct me. Someone had said, hey, they vote for Candace to be Journalist of the Year. What are your thoughts on that? You think that she has earned your vote for Journalist of the Year? I don't even know if there is an actual Journalist of the Year, but if there is an actual Journalist of the Year, does Candace get your vote? And if not, who does? She gets my vote. I believe she's worked hard, been honest, transparent, and I'm not saying she's always gotten things right, but I feel as though she has at least tried to get things right. And she's intelligent, talented, and again, she's pushing through the muck of all this stuff that's going on. But anyways, that's it for now. I might jump back on little later on. But thank you for uh, spending this little bit of time with me on Food for Thought. Please consider liking and especially sharing these videos to friends and family if you would. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.